That's the way it reads. And in all of the time that he's invoking the God in this whole section, and I think I read 6 or 7 of them, in no way does it look like it's one of the gods that the state believes in. He could have said at that point, by the way, there's some question about whether or not one of our gods happens to have been the cause of assigning me this post. Well, it happens to be Apollo. He didn't do that. Right? It's nameless. Right? But the gods that the state believes in, he could have taken the opportunity at that time and said, well, actually, it's Artemis. I think it's Artemis that commanded me because she has that kind of duty. Or it could be Athena. No names. Now, this is his defense, and if you would agree with me, that you don't want the jury to walk out with questions about your intention or what you mean, what you're doing. And it looks like, therefore, you can freely... See, is the question... It's often people think, some authors, especially the translator of this dialogue that I just read, think the charge is that he's an atheist, that the state is charging him with atheism. But that's not the case. It's not the case that he's an atheist.
If he believes in other new spiritual... I mean, that's what I was under the impression too, but how can he be charged with other new spiritual beings if he's an atheist?
Yeah, right. And... yeah, instead of the gods of the state. Yeah.
When he begins to dialogue with Meletus, Meletus changes it to atheism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But even though he was able to make him change the statement, the affidavit, the statements and the charge in the affidavit remain the charges.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he contradicted his own
yeah.
Now, in the earlier dialogues, he does talk about the gods of the state. He does talk about Zeus, etc.
In the earlier part of the
No, in other dialogues.
Oh, yes.
He has, again, but he's doing it in a different way. So it's not a question of their names, rather a question of, is it orthodoxy or heterodoxy?
Certainly unorthodox.
Right. I mean, that's the whole
unorthodox.
accusation.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what,
yeah.
you know, he's...
Yeah, and he's turning the whole trial. The trial is these formal charges. He's turning it against them and saying, look, I want to take this last dialogue that I'm going to have. He dialogues with the whole city, 501 people. And he wants to now defend philosophy against the accusers. That the accusers have prejudice against philosophy. So he's turning the entire court scene into a defense of philosophy. That's what he's doing in the first set of charges. That's what he's doing here, justifying it here. So he turns the whole case upside down. So the last major public dialogue that he has, he argues with the state. And that's a nice thing to do if you have the opportunity to dialogue with the whole state, 501 people in the jury.
I'm puzzled about something. He's being guided by dreams, oracles, in any way man has been commanded by God, and he follows through with that. Is there any other indication of how that's different? Is that different than what the state would believe in terms of relating to the gods? Or
pardon me, I don't understand your question. Is that in any way different than the way in which the state would believe in gods? Yes, yes.
Does he give an indication of how the
Pardon me, let me make sure I have it. Are you asking whether or not a contemporary Greek at the time of Plato, at the time of this statement, would look at that as evidence of the way in which they believed in the gods, their own gods?
Yes.
Well, there are two things with that. One is we have to judge just in terms of the dialogue itself. And even if he were to make that statement, he didn't take the opportunity at that time to mention by the way, one of the gods that has been directing me to do this my whole life, the game of philosophy, by the way, happens to be Athena. He didn't name it. He could have named it, chose not to. Let me give it back. I've been commanded to do this by the God, through oracles and dreams, in every way in which any man has ever been commanded by divine power to do anything whatsoever. At that time he could have said, you know, I've been commanded to do this by Apollo, the oracles, or...
It sounds like a very monotheistic statement to say too, by the God, you know, I mean, within the polytheistic system, his new spiritual being, which I presume that's what he's talking about.
Well, when he says God, he's talking about the one, right?
Right, I mean, it seems...
See, he could say, a God,
Right.
your God, our God, the God, my God. Thank you. Right. Or just let the whole business of the article drop out. I have been commanded by God. Well, this is the whole problem, isn't it? What's the significance of this? Because we know if this were chosen, it would mean then that they are other gods. That would be quite appropriate, a God, since they are polytheism. Right? Your God. I identify, by the way, I'm identifying with your God. Same God with your God. That's the God that has urged me to do this. My God. Uh-oh, dangerous. Different. Our God. Communicality. We both share the same thing. God. Unspecified. The God. Uh-oh.
Which one?
No. That's not A.
But that's what's so annoying about it. I mean, his ego is what? I mean, I would be really annoyed if somebody was sitting there saying that to me. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, he's putting himself on such a pedestal.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I'd be stoked.
Pardon me. That's right. That's right. I mean, this man is making the most astonishing claim.
Yeah.
And we can say it's egoistic, or we can say it's simple and
But
straight,
that's
depending
after
upon how you read it.
He
Yeah.
tried to prove Delphi wrong, and I mean, to me, that his proof of Delphi isn't necessarily disbelief in Apollo. It is a reductio ad absurdum. He goes, you know, he does it rather than blind faith, just saying, okay, they say you're the wisest person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'd be pretty stupid to accept that without any proof. So he goes and says, okay, let's assume that Delphi is wrong.
Yes.
I would meet somebody wiser. And so he is, in a certain way, by this time saying the God is not his personal egotism, it is modesty of the wisest person, if that makes sense.
See, isn't that interesting? Because Chaperon goes to the Delphic Oracle and says, is anyone wiser than Socrates? And the Delphic Oracle comes out, no one is wiser. Socrates then says, oh, this can't be. I will disprove the oracle. That's his language, right? I sought to disprove it. And if we're all in a Greek world, and Apollo is sacred Apollo, and the Delphic Oracle, and you're just hearing, what did he say? He's going to disprove, and he goes around to disprove it. And then when he can't, right, because it turns out that he does disprove it. But